From the Generation 1 comics, to the decades of animated series, to the blockbuster live-action movies, this is From Cybertron and Beyond, with your hosts, Adam and the Emerald Enthusiast.
Welcome to another episode from Cybertron and Beyond, a Transformers podcast and Vidcast. As always, I'm your host Adam, and as always is my co-host, the Emerald Enthusiast himself, Donnie. Donnie, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, Transformers fans? It's the Emerald Enthusiast and Adam, and we're back to talk about your favorite sentient battling robots. This is From Cybertron and Beyond.
I always have to do a name check before we do any podcast because there's so many, and I don't want to end up amalgamating the names and creating another podcast, which would be funny. So that's what we do here. But welcome to another episode, as Donnie alluded to, and of course we're going to continue our journey through the live-action Transformers film franchise as we get ever closer to the latest installment of the Transformers live-action film franchise, which is, of course, Transformers Rise of the Beast. Today we will be covering...
I have seen a lot of the figures, the merchandise so far, and stuff is looking good, man.
Yeah, it's tempting not to buy it, I'll be honest with you. I am teetering on a Optimus and Bumblebee figure. If I get any, it'll be only those two. And this time I'm sticking to that, Madbra. not like every other figure that I've purchased today. So okay, that's it. And next thing you know, it's a whole constant.
I saw an Optimus Primal mask, and I really wasn't tempted to get this. This was more aimed at kids, but just the sculpting on it and the way.
Is it a voice changing one?
I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Because that's what I want. So because. You know what I want to do, Donnie? Just I'd like to get an Optimus Prime, like the voice-changing mask.
Yeah.
And then when telemarketers call, I put it on and yell at them in Optimus Prime voice. That's my ultimate fantasy. But no, go ahead.
Get off of my telephone!
Yeah. Oh, I'd be a little bit more vulgar than that, but you know, especially if they catch me in a bad mood when the Leafs do something stupid. But I digress. But so you were saying the figures. The ones that I saw have looked nice, and I wouldn't expect anything less. Hasbro's been doing this for how long now? They're pretty good at that toy thing, you know. So they have it down to a science. So they have the science of taking our money down to a precise degree.
Taking no space behind me here. So
yeah. So we're gonna do a review of Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. It's a very controversial and often negatively discussed installment of the franchise, but we'll talk about it. But before, as we always do on any of our shows, we talk about news if there is any, and there is some news, so we'll discuss it now. Donnie, you're aware that in addition to this upcoming live-action film, Rise of the Beasts, there is an animated feature film in the works for the Transformers, and we have some details about that. And so we're gonna discuss that now. And the report that I'm going to be reading off of and discussing is from Deadline, so it's not from Joe Schmo talks about nonsense.com. This is from a legitimate
the ones that are all over Twitter.
Yeah, basically. This is an actual legitimate trade, so here we go. It's official, it's not nonsense. But so first of all, the title of this animated movie is Transformers 1. Not Transformers and then the number 1, but Transformers and then O-N-E,
O-N-E, yes.
The spelling of it, yeah. So just to be clear on that. So it's an animated feature, as we've discussed, and it's an origin story for the Autobots and Decepticons and their beginnings and their eventual conflict and the whole 9 yards. So the release date has been adjusted, and it will open September 13th, 2024.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the release date I saw. Yeah. And I thought you were getting ready to tell me it got adjusted again. So I guess it got adjusted from something previous.
Yeah. Originally it was July 19th, 2024. Okay. And now it's September. I'm assuming it has more to do with the animation process and the visuals than anything else.
Okay.
So there's that. It says here, Transformers 1 tells the story of how young Optimus Prime and Megatron went from being brothers in arms to sworn enemies. That sounds pretty cool. It's kind of just the log line of going from friends to mortal enemies reminds me of the tag, some of the taglines for Smallville. So yeah. I just thought I'd throw that in there. And so we have.
Kind of reminds me of Shawn Michaels and Diesel. Good friends, better enemies.
Yeah, yeah. And so the main cast includes. I'll give you the main two that we know who they're playing, but it's Optimus Prime will be voiced by Thor himself, Chris Hemsworth. And I'm trying to imagine the sound of that. And all I can think of is Optimus Prime speaking like Thor in very old Shakespearean English, type, and then as Megatron, we have Megan. Megan. I was thinking Megan Fox already. We haven't even started.
I'm shocked that you're thinking about Megan Fox.
Yeah, I know it's groundbreaking news. Huh? No, Megatron will be played by Brian Tyree Henry. Mm-hmm. And the film also features the voices of Scarlett Johansson. Wait a second, hold on. On the list. Let's see, we've got in addition to Scarlett, we've got Keegan Michael Key.
Hey, there you go.
John Hamm. And Lawrence Fishburne, who are voicing Elita, Bumblebee, and Sentinel Prime and Alpha Trion. So just pair the names with the respective characters I rolled off. I guess they go in order from the names I read to the characters. So that's what we know, and that's coming. So what are your thoughts on? Mainly, what are your thoughts of Hemsworth as Optimus?
Well, my guess is he will be completely different than the Hemsworth we know as Thor. He may very well have a voice that, we've never heard, something that's completely different than the way he speaks usually or the way he speaks as Thor. So I'm going to, give him a chance. Well, let's see how it works. We all know that Peter Cullen has been so iconic that that's who we hear, or at least that's who most Transformers fans hear. So when we hear about somebody different, we automatically bristle a little bit. But let's give the guy a chance. Obviously, we know he's a talented actor.
Yeah,
I also like the idea of delving back into Cybertron before the Autobots and Decepticons came to Earth. We've only seen glimpses of that throughout the media.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a lot of time spent on that I know of, at least. Maybe there was in some of the end of some of the IDW comics, but...
And at least from what I know, I don't remember getting to see, the years where they were, there was a friendship and, partnering bond between the two of them. So that's sort of fertile ground, at least from my perspective. And again, I was just kidding about the whole Thor speaking aspect of it. I'm not going to look. Nobody's going to be Peter Cullen, right? And much in the same way that nobody that does Batman is Kevin Conroy. But you have to allow for different interpretations, different sounding interpretations. And who knows?
And we've been very lucky that Peter Cullen has been able to do this for so long.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they hit their 70s and 80s and their voice changes.
Yeah, his voice is still, I mean, it's just so comforting hearing him. Whenever I hear it, it's like like the director of the live action, the movie, Stephen Cable Jr. I was watching a video with him. It must have been a couple of weeks back where he was. I guess they were doing final ADR, right? And he was talking about how they just wrapped and they're pretty much done. And behind him comes Peter Cullen, and he just opens his mouth and starts talking. And all you hear, I mean, he's not purposely doing it, but all I hear is Optimus Prime. And it's like, yeah, it's like, okay, that's the voice, right? So I think I'd like to have Peter Cullen record my voice messaging for my cell phone and things of that nature. But anyway, but I'm open to giving him a chance. And who knows? They may have some voice alteration, like just because it's Chris Hemsworth, the final product might not sound like it might not be automatic that we're just gonna hear Chris Hemsworth as soon as he opens his mouth. There may be some trickery with voice alteration. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To make it sound more robotic.
There actually is right now. You can get an Optimus Prime voice on TikTok, and you can speak into it, and it sounds like Peter Cullen's voice.
Yeah, I don't think they go. I don't think.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying they do that.
That's not what I'm. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying more. The alter it to make it sound more robotic, more.
Yes.
So there is that potential. So, but again, let's give it a chance. And he's talented, and I'm sure he can come up with a voice. Like here's an example. When I watched the Super Mario Brothers movie, I didn't hear Chris Pratt when he spoke when words came out of Mario's mouth. So it is doable. People can change their voice, and so we'll see what Chris Hemsworth delivers when the time comes. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see this early days story, and the more Transformers content, the merrier, because that gives us more stuff to podcast about, and it's always a fun time. Now, Donnie, there is still no official announcement about where Transformers is going to land in terms of their comic book home, their new comic book home, because IDW no longer has the rights to publish Transformers. So I just thought it'd be a cool little quick segment to think of. I'm thinking about Hasbro as the IP holder, right, and where some of their properties are. Most of their properties are currently at Boom Studios. Boom Studios has Magic the Gathering. They're doing stuff with that. They've got Power Rangers. Boom Studios does. So I'm wondering if it's just an eventuality that Boom Studios is the home of future Transformers comics, or does Marvel make a play and acquire the rights again to publish from Hasbro?
That would be an event, Transformers coming home to Marvel, where, they originally had their comics published. I think Marvel could promote that as something big, and a crossover with Marvel characters would be huge. Of course, I would love it if somehow we'd get Transformers in the DC universe, and I finally get Green Lantern, Optimus Prime. I'm just saying.
I know you want that figure. That's your ultimate end game is the. The reason I didn't include DC is because they typically don't.
As far as I know, they're not. I haven't heard anything about them being in the equation.
They don't license out. You typically, at least they don't anymore. Well, I mean, not too long ago they did have Masters of the Universe, so they do it, but it's not as like Marvel does it more often. Marvel does it with like they've reacquired Planet of the Apes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a new Planet of the Apes.
But, you know, DC has done crossovers with Boom.
Yeah.
With Planet of the Apes, Star Trek. So we could still see a crossover.
Yeah. But it'll be interesting. I think Boom.
Can you imagine a McFarlane statue of Optimus Prime as a Green Lantern? Beautiful.
Donnie's thinking about that statue the way I think of Megan Fox. Let's just say what's going on here, folks. That's what's going on. If Donnie had a pen, he'd be clicking it right now.
That's a wonderful thought.
Yeah, but no. But I just from my perspective, point of view, I'm leaning towards Boom just because that's where most of Hasbro's properties are comic-wise right now, which excites me because the potential for a Transformers Power Rangers comic crossover makes all the friggin' sense in the world. The Megazord and Optimus. Somebody, hello, like there's money being left on the table, but what do I know? But there is, for me, the appeal of the Transformers being back at Marvel, given the history, there is something there. But I eagerly hope to hear that news at some point relatively soon because I want new and more Transformers comics. And you'd think with the movie on the, mere a couple of weeks away and the new animated movie on the horizon that they're going to want to get Transformers comics back in print. So
I would love to get like some new omnibus editions for the old Marvel comics.
So I think that announcement will come. If I had to guess, probably San Diego is when they do it. That's just me guessing. But we will wait and see. The other thing I want to touch on news-wise, and this kind of projection has been all over the place, so it's hard to pin down, but there's been projections for opening weekend for Rise of the Beasts.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got two sources that are chiming in. One is Box Office Pro, the other one is Deadline. Box Office Pro estimates a 35 to 45 million opening weekend for Rise of the Beasts. Deadline estimates between 65 and 75 is where I last saw it. Those are two widely different ranges.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope, my hope would be like pie in the sky, as a pure fan of this franchise, I'd want it to be the higher number, obviously. But I understand why Box Office Pro has it at the 35 to 45 because you got to understand Transformers as a movie franchise is in a recovery period. Because as much as Donnie and I, and there's plenty of other people that enjoy the Michael Bay iteration of the franchise, there is no denying that the last couple of movies soured people on the franchise. I'm talking general audience wise.
Yeah. And obviously they hit the reboot with Bumblebee, so
right. And so Bumblebee had to sort of was the start of bearing the brunt of sort of repairing. And again, I hate saying this because it makes it seem like I don't like the previous iterations. I do, for the most part. I mean, we're going to talk about one that is my least favorite coming up, but on the whole, I generally really enjoyed this franchise and what's come before, from Michael Bay specifically. But Bumblebee had to start repairing the damage that was left by specifically the last two Bay films. But I think the damage started with the movie we're going to review shortly. But so Bumblebee's box office wasn't that high. it had the benefit of being released at Christmas of the year it came out. So, but the important thing for Bumblebee was the positive reception from both critics and audiences. I think why I can see the potential for that lower opening, the $35 to $45 million opening weekend domestically, is because, again, twofold. We're trying to win the trust back of the audience. It's going to take more than one movie, right? That's number one. Number two, this summer is packed, where
There's a lot.
Every week there is pretty much a new tentpole film coming out. And a lot of these films are competing for the same viewer demographic. So that's going to cut into potential earnings. I just hope that Paramount is mindful of that, so that if it does open in the $35 to $45 million range, they don't panic and, shutter all their plans because, oh my God, it didn't hit the billion as the ridiculous benchmark seems to be. We'll see where it lands, but I think if there is a positive, if the word of mouth and the reception is positive, I think you just got to stay the course and just work on bringing back the goodwill of the audience for at least for this next film, because.
Well, let's look at the other side of the coin too. There are a lot of kids out there who are probably just now hearing about the Transformers.
Yeah.
And maybe we get a new generation that kind of fuels this along.
Yeah.
Because, again, it had the Transformers, the live action, the last, installment was pre-pandemic. And so we're getting some people who are anxious to get back to theaters now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And reacquaint themselves with the franchises they love. And when you add in some new energy, perhaps this could, garner some excitement. I hope.
Yeah. So, and again, it's hard to gauge from the tracking estimates because they can only go off of certain data. What they can go off of is walk-up business. They can only go off of pre-sales up to a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
They can't go, they can't really measure what walk-up business is going to be like, because not everybody, and I've seen this, this is playing out on Twitter with The Flash, right? There's estimates of it's going to open anywhere between 70 to 75 to 85 to 135. So the estimates are all over the place. But again, you can only, pre-sales can only determine so much, because I know a lot of people that don't buy their tickets weeks in advance.
Oh, yeah.
I still know people that a day before or the day that they're planning to go to a movie is when they buy the tickets. Like, I haven't bought my Rise of the Beast tickets yet, but I'm going to go opening weekend.
Yeah, I think that's the tracking is more for, you're talking about the hardest core, the hardest of the hardcore fans. Like, people who just can't wait.
The only tickets I've bought weeks in advance of a movie, there's three, and I'll name the three. The Dark Knight, back in 2008. BVS back in 2016. And just the other day, The Flash. Because bet your ass I was going to have tickets for Michael Keaton's return well in advance, just to point that out. Because I've been waiting 30 plus years for that stuff. But those are the only three. Everything else I bought the day of at the theater. So, and I know a lot of people that still do that. I would say that's the habit of most viewing audience. So, again, I wouldn't worry about it in terms of what if it does this. I think Paramount probably is aware that they're not instantly going to get what the second and third Transformers movies got, which was that $1 billion mark, because conversely, that first Michael Bay film garnered a lot of goodwill and trust, because don't let revisionist history fool you. Most of the general audience and hardcore fans that saw that really loved that movie.
And this franchise made money. It's not perfect. There's a lot of things lot of flaws. That doesn't mean it wasn't successful.
So I think there is a rehabilitation that is happening. So if there is lower box office right now, that's why, coupled with a lot of competition, right?
Mhm.
And so, this year I think is going to be the most, in terms of predicting box office and expecting, mega returns. I think it's a little bit ridiculous because I've never seen a summer, even in like pre-pandemic times, where there were this many releases, one on top of the other. It's insane. Like,
Yeah.
Here's an example. We've got this weekend. It's not my cup of tea. No offense. Like, if you love it, that's great. But we've got The Little Mermaid. I'm not a Disney princess kind of guy. It's just not my thing. For the people that love it, God bless you. Good for you.
Yeah, I definitely want to see that at some point. Yeah.
I mean, that's something I'll watch if I'm bored and it's on Disney Plus. That's probably when I'll check it out.
Right.
So there's that's happening right now. It just came out yesterday as of this recording. As of this recording, next week will be Across the Spider-Verse. Then
my youngest child is over the moon excited about that one.
Right, there's a lot of people in that boat. Then the following week is, of course, Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. The week after Rise of the Beasts is The Flash. And 2 weeks after The Flash is Indiana Jones and whatever the heck the subtitle is, I forgot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, look at that. Like, when is the last time we've seen that much congestion at the movie theater?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
a lot of projects got delayed during the pandemic and they got kind of pushed, and here we're kind of coming out of that now, and so everything is kind of, one thing is stacked on top.
My hope is that Paramount will look at that and say, all right, if this comes in a little bit lower, then we'll just bite the bullet and continue to move on forward. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
With our plans. That's what I'm hoping. Because I think it's a little bit ridiculous of an ask to say, okay, this film has to do $1 billion for us to move forward. I think that would be absolutely asinine on the studio's part.
Well, there are so many. There are only so many games that are. I mean, so many movies that are like Avengers Endgame or Star Wars or Rise of Skywalker.
And I agree with you. But you know how the discourse
Avatar,
is online. Yeah. You know how the discourse is online now, right? With these box office pundits. If a franchise IP doesn't make $1 billion, people start, oh my God, that's a failure. That's a disappointment. So to me, what I would have done if I was Paramount, and I'm not. So this is just me. You take it for.
Wait a minute. This whole time.
Yeah, you thought I was an executive at Paramount, right? I fooled you.
I thought you were all of Paramount.
Oh yeah, exactly. Absolutely. I'm omnipotent.
Like Ray was all of the Jedi. You're all of Paramount.
I'm omnipotent. I can make movies with the snap of my finger.
Where is my Kyle Rayner movie then?
Well, it's Paramount. I don't have no control over Warner Brothers. If I did, Jesus, you'd be seeing all kinds of stuff from Warner Brothers if I had control. DC would be the only stuff they made if I was in control. But the Batman Beyond movie would have been announced yesterday. But so if I was in control, if I was scheduling, what I would have done is I would have looked at Bumblebee and looked at the positivity that garnered, and sort of the that 2 week Christmas period where even despite Aquaman, making $1 billion, despite what's her name, the girl with the umbrella, the English lady with the umbrella, what the hell is her name?
Oh, Mary Poppins.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, not my thing. Whatever makes the medicine go down, I don't prescribe. I don't like medicine. But despite that being out, I think Bumblebee did fairly well, and Into the Spider-Verse, Bumblebee held its own and did well during that Christmas period. I would have released it at Christmas time, despite Aquaman 2 also being in the picture. I think it would have had more chance at making even more profit. But that's, again, I get it. Release dates are all over the place. Everything's crunched. So I think this year is kind of a bit of a write-off in terms of what studios can be expecting profit-wise from these things. Because there's going to be 1 or 2 big hits, and the other ones are going to have to, vie for the rest of the pie, right? That's just the way the nature of the beast is. And if you had more time in between, which they didn't because of the pandemic and stuff, if you had more spread out releases, I think this Transformers film would have done gangbusters. If it does just okay, like I said, I hope cooler heads prevail at Paramount, and they're like, let's push onward. As long as the word of mouth and the reviews and the reception is good, I think that you grab hold of that and continue making movies in this vein, and I think the profits will come back up again. But I think you just got to stay the course, and let this year be this year. It's going to be a weird year with all these movies, one after the other, and then move forward once as the world hopefully continues getting back to normal, and things stabilize, and visual effects houses can spread out their work and things of that nature. You can then spread out releases again, and each film will have its own time to reap as much benefits from the box office as possible going forward. But for now,
right,
you just gotta bite the bullet and hope.
But I think we can still be cautiously optimistic.
Oh, I think it'll do well. I think again, the good thing is it's coming out in June. It'll have a good, I would say, 2 to 3 months of summer play. So that'll be good.
I mean, just the feeling, like Ben Affleck said, and Justice League, or Batman vs Superman.
Yeah, faith.
Just a feeling.
Oh yeah, that was Justice League when he says only temporary.
Yeah.
Was it only temporary? I don't know.
No, it was the one where he was telling Wonder Woman, we need a team.
Coming. Yeah, that's
something's coming, and she's like, why? He's like, just a feeling.
That was BB. I tuned out after Superman said no one stays good in this world. That's when I tuned out of that movie. I'm like, yeah, okay, they screwed up this one. But anyway, I'm not here to talk about that. I've said my piece on that movie. Let's just move onward. But so yeah, I'm hoping for the best, but I'm looking forward to it. Whatever happens with the box office, bring it on. I'm ready for this. It's been a long time it's been 5 years since Bumblebee, I think.
It was 2018, I believe. It was summer 2018, if I remember.
Oh, it was Christmas. It was December.
Oh, it was December? Okay.
Yeah. When the world was normal and
yeah, we didn't know how good we had it back then, did we?
Yeah. 2018. I was 4 less Leaf disappointments.
Some things stay the same even through the pandemic.
The good old days when I had this.
Yeah, you are right. December 21st, it was released. Yeah.
I had less white hair in my. I trimmed it today, so you can't really tell. But back in 2018, I had less white hair in my goatee, and I attribute that white hair to the Leafs and their misfortunes. So there's that. But anyway, I'm excited for Rise of the Beasts. It beats Rise of my blood pressure, which happens every April, temporarily in the playoffs. So Rise of the Beast, let's go. I'm looking forward to it. And of course, as soon as Donnie and I have both seen it, we will come back here and review it. Now, Donnie, just before we take a break, do you suggest that we, in between our look back at the previous iterations of the live action franchise, are we interrupting that schedule to do Rise of the Beasts? Is that the plan?
It will all depend on my availability as far as the theater goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll see.
So if Donnie sees it relatively close to when I see it, we will break away from our look back and do a relatively fresh review of the movie. Mm-hmm. If Donnie doesn't see it in a decent window from when I see it, we'll wait for the home release to do it. But we will do it. It just depends on, again, when Donnie sees it. So
yeah. You may have a guest host, somebody who gets to see it before me, and I'm okay with that. So.
Oh no, I'll stick with you either way, but for that one, because we've been doing these. So
right here on From Cybertron and Beyond, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel.
Because look, we've got a lot of movies. Like even if you haven't seen it, we've still got 3 more movies after this one to discuss, right? So or 4.
You know what? I can do that better. Right here on From Cybertron and Beyond, make sure to subscribe.
Yeah. So we will review it. It just depends on.
I can do it even better. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway.
Donnie's gonna get a 1-2 theater punch of a drive-through theater screening of The Flash and Transformers: Rise of the Beast. That's what I think Donnie's hoping for. That would be one hell of a screening, wouldn't it be? Can you imagine? Not
Oh,
good. A hell of a
I would
podcast.
love that.
Yeah. But whenever he sees it, we'll review it and we'll share our thoughts at that moment in time. So stay tuned and again, be on the lookout for that when we review it. But right now, we'll take a quick break, and on the other side of the break, we'll go back in time to 2009, I believe,
Yes, it was 2009.
and review Transformers.
Revenge of the Fallen.
We'll be right
So don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Please.
We'll be right back.
What's up, everyone? It's the Emerald Enthusiast. For all of your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows, which include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast. You can check us out on Podbean, and remember to subscribe right here on YouTube. That's the Multiverse Musings Podcast Network. From the first podcast to the last.
And we're back.
Indeed. And as promised, we're going to review Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen. Now, Donnie, before we get into the specifics of what we liked, what we didn't like, what was your anticipation level? Take us back to 2009.
Oh,
What was
I
your
really,
anticipation?
I really did anticipate this greatly because there were so many Transformers in the first movie. I thought that we didn't see, obviously, and I thought that there were storytelling possibilities that they could build on the first one. I was disappointed in many ways, and I want to get this out there. I still like this movie.
Yeah,
I own it.
agree.
I think it did more things right than wrong,
Agree.
but that
Also
doesn't
agree.
mean that I don't think it has some glaring deficiencies. So I saw this and I was a little disappointed in several things. A couple of things I really wish they weren't there, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
I think I know which one it is, but because I'm there too.
In the end, it was still Transformers. There was a lot of action in this that I thought kind of brought me back to the feeling I had in 2007, as well as reading the old comics and watching the old cartoon. So I was still happy about it. I just thought they misfired in a couple of places.
I'm pretty much in exact agreement with you in terms of the generalities of it. But I was supremely excited for going into the movie. Like I was on a high from that first movie. Like, I kid you not. Remember when I said when me and my friends got out of the theater, we're making the Transformer, the change noise the whole time. Yeah, that kept going for about 2 years. Like, it was like an ongoing thing. Whenever we'd see, whatever, or we'd go to a movie and we just for when we saw each other, the first thing we did, even if it wasn't a Transformers movie, we just, I mean, but you got to remember, it was something we'd never seen. We never thought we'd see a Transformers movie. So, and then the trailers were all good for this movie. So that's one thing about all of the Transformers movies. Paramount can cut a good trailer. Whoever they hire to cut their trailers, that's some top tier people in the business of doing that. So I was excited. And again, just exactly what you said. There's things I really like about it. There's things that I don't care for at all, and I think are ridiculous. Overall, though, they did a lot more good than they did bad, in my opinion. So it's one that if it's on, I'll rewatch it. If I have to rewatch it for something like this, or as a rewatch as a lead up to whatever the next Transformers movie is, I have zero issue doing it. It's not a chore to do.
Yeah, I really had fun rewatching this for this podcast and making notes on little things that I liked and disliked. I think there's a lot to like here. It is a long movie, so you're bound to find something in this that you like.
Yeah.
If you're a Transformers fan at all.
There are movies that I don't want to go. I don't want to rewatch anymore. Here's an example: The Flash is coming out, right? I really don't want to watch BVS again.
Okay.
So I'm not going to.
Okay.
I'm going to watch Man of Steel. I'm going to watch the theatrical version of Justice League because I ain't sitting through 4 hours. And then I'm going to watch the two Keaton movies and call it a day. I'm ready for The Flash. But yeah, I don't, it's a movie that I don't want to go back to. Like, yeah, when I go back to that movie, it angers me. There are certain parts that anger me.
You're speaking of BVS. Let's not confuse people since we're, yeah.
When I go back and watch Revenge of the Fallen, nothing angers me to the point of they've defaced my favorite characters. They've damaged the integrity of my favorite characters. I never get that sense from it. Like Optimus Prime still behaves like Optimus Prime.
Right. Bumblebee still behaves like Bumblebee. Yeah.
And you know what Transformers Revenge of the Fallen has that BVS doesn't have?
What?
Megan Fox in jean shorts getting off a motorcycle. That's what Transformers Revenge of the Fallen has, folks. And that, my friends, is on the list.
So my last little bit here on BVS, which I like much more than Adam, but including one particular story point that, this past week Sports Illustrated came out with their, I guess, or this week or last month, whatever, with the Okay, so one of the cover models happens to be an 81-year-old lady, and that made big news. But every time I'm hearing this news report, they're like, "So Martha Stewart's on the cover," and I'm like, "Why did you say that name?" Wherever I was,
you've been doing that to the TV. Whenever you heard this news,
wherever I am, other than church, if I hear that, I've got to say that. My wife and kids are like, "Oh my gosh,
I love it." Can you videotape yourself doing that? You should videotape yourself doing that, and specifically your wife and daughter's reaction. I want to see it. I've heard about their reactions, but I want to see it live.
Okay.
Well, not live, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I had imagined you doing that when I first saw the news on Twitter. That's the first thing I thought of. I think I even tweeted about it and posted the GIF. I don't know if you saw it. Can you imagine? Just an aside. You said the only place you don't do it is church.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if history had been rewritten and instead of Mary, Jesus' mother's name was Martha? Can you imagine you sitting in church and hearing they're reading the passage and the priest says Martha? Yeah. All of a sudden Donnie stands up and goes, "What did you say that name?" Oh man.
Well, there are Marthas in the Bible, and I restrain myself in church, but that's the only place that gets that level of control.
Next time I hear that in a Bible passage, I may have to just boot it up. Listen, if I go to hell, at least it's warm. But anyway, so yeah, Transformers has Megan Fox on a motorcycle.
Yeah,
and that's what BVS doesn't have. So next, Zach, if you make a cut of BVS with Megan Fox on a motorcycle in it, I'll give you 3 extra points for that movie. But anyway, so
she seems like she could be a decent Catwoman. Just an aside there.
Catwoman, Poison Ivy is something I do. James Gunn, are you listening? Listen, James, if you give me Megan Fox as either a DCU Catwoman, well, it probably would be depending on how old Batman is. But I digress. Catwoman or Poison Ivy, I would be at that movie opening day. I'd sleep at the theater the night before.
Okay.
Talk about not getting tickets 3 weeks in advance. I get tickets the day she was the casting announcement came down. I don't know if you can get tickets, but I'd finagle away. I just use the word finagle to get those tickets. So James, if you're listening, you're not listening to this podcast, but if you are, somebody send this to James Gunn.
I was going to say, how do you know? How do you know?
I don't know how to clip. Do you know how to clip segments of the show?
Yeah.
Okay, so somebody clip this segment and send it to James Gunn.
James Gunn, okay.
Tweet at James Gunn that I want Megan Fox. And listen, I don't know why she gets such a bad rap. It'll piss off a lot of online internet trolls, and I'm here for that. So it's a 2-for-1 win for me. But anyway, so one of the things I did like about this movie, let's start with the things we liked. I like the idea of the characters going, or at least Sam going to college. I think that's important. A progression of time, a little bit of time.
And the fact, let's call out the fact that he was mature too. He was
Yeah.
like, look, I did that in the past, but now
Yeah.
I want to kind of move on and be a normal person.
Yeah, and he wanted to move away from that and like live his life. That was an isolated incident.
And even tried to send Bumblebee back to the Autobots.
I got to tell you, I think it's old age that's doing it to me, Donnie. As I get older, I have these things. But when he's saying, to Bumblebee, you can't come.
Yeah.
They have a rule that you can't have your car.
Yeah.
And Bumblebee's getting emotional. He's leaking whatever
fluid, whatever
from his eyes. I was getting emotional watching that. So,
yeah. And I have no idea what that yellow fluid was that he spewed onto Alice inside the car.
when he quote unquote urinated.
But it was inside. I'm like, does he pee inside of himself too? But anyway, that's.
I think Bumblebee's gonna start wearing diapers if that's the case. Can you imagine that action figure? Hasbro, get on that. But so I like the fact that he was going to college and sort of, again, if I'm getting emotional over Bumblebee, then somebody's doing something right. If you can make me get attached and emotional to a relationship between an adult person and their alien transforming vehicle,
right?
Somebody in the writing and sound department is doing something right, because I think that's a combination of visual effects, the dialogue that Sam is spouting, and then the music, the score that elicits those emotions. So good job to all those people involved.
Mm-hmm. I will say, I thought that Bumblebee came off very good in this movie.
Yeah.
Once again, he's a big part of the Transformers. It's a character that you always need to have in the forefront, much like Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
I don't understand the decision why this movie set 2 years in the future, and yet he still can't talk. Because he talked at the end. He clearly said something at the end of the first film. So how come he was... maybe there's an adaptation out there and his voice box got damaged again or whatever. But even if that's the case, let him talk at this point.
Yeah, that was kind of ridiculous. I think that was an error in terms of continuity. Yeah. Or maybe it was a case of people really dig Bumblebee talking via the radio. And so instead of progressing that, they're like, well, people seem to dig that, let's keep it. But either way, they needed to come up with an in-story reason for why, as opposed to nobody will notice.
Right.
And a big problem with this movie is that it was conceived and conceptualized in the midst of a writer's strike.
Yeah, that was, and we've heard several of the cast and even Michael Bay, I think, say that some of this movie's problems were due to that.
Like Michael Bay is writing on. If Michael Bay is writing on set, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like Michael Bay should not be writing his own movies. Michael Bay should just be the visual, person, because that's what he's good at. He's visually, as a visual storyteller, he's great. I think he and Zack Snyder share a lot of commonalities. Visually, they know what they're doing. But the minute that they try and write something is when stuff goes off the rails. So, the writer's strike being a thing while this was being conceived is a lot of its problems.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And that this should be a caution to the writer's strike that's going on right now. Folks in Hollywood that make billions of dollars, the executives, pay the damn writers.
I could not agree more.
This is just an aside, because I'll tell you why. Because if you don't, you're going to get a lot more situations like Revenge of the Fallen. That's number one. Number two, and without these people, without writers, Donnie, there is no movie. There is no show. A director cannot direct. An actor cannot act. Well, they can, but they'd have nothing. What are they going to work off of? And then you as the studio executive have no product to make money off of. Like
Mhm.
this is, to me, it's common sense. We know a deal is going to get done. Just give them what they should be fairly owed. That's all there is to it.
I
And
completely agree.
that's the magnanimous version of me. The selfish version of me really wants Matt Reeves to get back to writing the Batman Part 2.
Right.
And Brian Cogman to continue working on his Zorro show for Disney Plus. Adam wants these things. And the more writers are not working, Adam doesn't get these things. So
Right.
pay the damn writers.
But it comes back to the same point. Pay the writers what they are worth. And so we've heard too many stories about creators saying that, they're living in really rough conditions and going from, paycheck to paycheck. And I'm like, if you're working on $1 billion franchise, why is that the case?
Colin Farrell should not be picketing with writers. He should be in front of a camera as the Penguin. So pay the writers.
Yeah. And we've had enough stars come out and, and confirm this, basically, that this is what is happening for me not to believe
it's so
what they're
stupid.
saying.
It's like, it's like they're the creators of your content. Without the writers, there's nothing.
Yeah. All right, but back to the movie. Let's get a little bit of setup here. 2 years after the first film, the Autobots have found a home, and it's a military unit called Nest, and they're helping the U.S. military hunt down the remaining Decepticons that are on Earth.
Yeah, and it makes sense to me that they would create this group, this faction. It sounds like a wrestling term, but you know what I mean. Like, it makes sense because otherwise, what are they going to do? They just hide around as an everyday car. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a logical step for them to make. It also gives the film an excuse to bring back some of the military men, like Josh Duhamel, who again is pretty solid in this, and the guy from the Fast and the Furious movies,
Tyrese Gibson.
Yeah, thank you.
As Robert Epps.
Yeah. So it gives you a reason to bring back some of these human characters. So it makes some sense there. And one of the early moments in the film, I think even before the moment with Sam and Bumblebee, there's a moment where we see Ness in action, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sort of rounding up Decepticons that are on the loose. I believe this sequence takes place in China.
And seeing Optimus Prime come down from the sky, and to lead this assault, that was awesome.
and there's a scene where one of the, I can't remember, it might have been Optimus, it might not have been somebody else, where one of the Transformers is in the midst of transforming,
mm-hmm.
and then uses a sword to slice the Decepticon in half. That was a badass sequence.
Yeah, are you talking about? I don't know if that was Ironhide or
might have been Ironhide. I think it was. Ironhide.
It might have been. I don't think that was Optimus, but I think I know what you're talking about.
It was a cool visual, is what I'm getting.
Yeah.
And then in that same sequence, this is part of the problem with this movie. It's one of those the twins.
Yeah.
They go through a building, and there's an Asian, I guess a Chinese person or a couple eating.
Yeah.
And, they look bewildered, they look confused, because naturally you would be confused if two friggin' giant robots came barreling through your kitchen.
Yeah.
That's not the problem. The problem is they crafted the shot and made these two actors up in the most stereotypical negative connotation of a Chinese man that you could create, and that is just ridiculously stupid and unacceptable. That's the kind of stuff that drags this movie down. Is stupid nonsense like that. So,
well, and on that note, there was a lot of negative reaction to Mudflap and Skids,
the two twins, yeah,
exactly, because of the way that they talked. And some people, at the worst, people were saying that it was racist. At the best, people are saying that these were really stupid characters. And I
think it's somewhere in between.
Yeah,
It's
don't
not
think
full-blown racism. Like, I don't think there was an intention to be.
Yeah, okay. And that's fair, but they tried to get too cute with a lot of the characters in this movie. You don't need to have too much comic relief, and I think we had that overall.
Yeah.
Everything from, Sam's dogs that were in heat.
That's another stupid, it was like every time we saw the dogs, they're humping something. It's like, I get it. Like, you're horny. Congratulations.
Right. To the mother eating the pot brownies and running all over campus telling
that
everybody.
Was and I like the parents in the first one. But this was just stupid.
Yeah.
This was ridiculous.
I do like the symmetry here, and I'll call this out. The fact that when we first see them, it's the mother who's very sad about Sam going off to college and, no, my boy, I can't let you go. Later on in the movie, when Sam is trying to fight against the Decepticons in the desert, it was the dad. He's like, no, I'm not letting you go.
Yeah, no, that stuff was good, but the stuff in between about her eating eating the spiked brownie and all that nonsense, it's like you could, and that stuff was. I could almost envision that stuff being written on set in the midst of the strike, where Michael Bay's just like, we need a comedic beat here. Insert, like that stuff felt like added on forced.
It felt like the writers almost had like a separate comedy movie written, and they're like, oh, we didn't get to do this, so we're going to inject some of that here.
Whereas what you're talking about seemed organic and naturalistic to the story, and I actually did like that parallel about how the mother didn't want to let him go off to college, and then the father didn't want to let him go at the end because he thought, well, my son's life is in danger. Right.
I would totally agree with the dad. I'm like, no, you're not going out and fighting giant sentient robots.
No. Yeah, I would not let my child or nephew or niece do that. But if I was Sam Witwicky and I had to defend, Michaela, I would go out there too with Optimus Prime, and because I understand where the dogs were coming from. Nobody acts on it to the degree that the dogs.
I would try to do it too. I would try to do it to defend my wife. Doesn't mean the Decepticons wouldn't squish me, but I do what I could.
It's a risk you take, right? But no. So there are parts with the parents that I like, the ones and then there's the nonsense that we talked about that could have been left on the floor. But the twins, again, I think it's. I don't think it's intentional racism. I think it's more stereotypes that should be long gone by now. Because, to be fair, we still have, again, the guy from the Transformers, the Fast and the Furious. What's his name?
Tyrese Gibson.
Tyrese. He's still, in a heroic military role. So it's not like they're intentionally making people of color look, have no agency in these films. Mm-hmm. Tyrese is still doing heroic things. So I don't think it's an intentional, hey, let's take a chance to be racist. I don't think it's that. I just think it's an overt reliance on stupidity.
Well, and again, they were also trying to be funny with several characters that I don't think they needed to be.
Yeah.
Jetfire was the same way. He's supposed to. He just didn't need that comedic of a personality.
I agree.
And could they have hit us over the head any more times to tell us that he's old? By the way, we're going to give him a beard and fake a walking stick.
I did like his. So I did like his age.
Yeah.
I did like the fact that there was some age there. The fact that they overplayed it was the thing that I could have done without.
Yeah.
But the age and the way they made him look old looked very good. And I did like the idea that, the Cybertronians had been on Earth for a lot longer than previously known.
Right.
One of the things I did like about this movie is that they went into more of the backstory and more of the history and showed you this is how long they've been here. We're talking prehistoric
Well, and that's a parallel to the Marvel Comics. Remember, we learn in that Shockwave had been, not Soundwave, Shockwave had been on Earth before.
Yeah.
And we actually see him attack at the end of issue 4.
Yeah.
So, which is another issue of mine. I think they could have used a more familiar Transformer than the Fallen. I didn't necessarily have a problem with the way that played out with the Primes and the Fallen. I thought it worked at the end, but they could have used a previously known Transformer.
And I thought like the Fallen in the sequence at the beginning where they show, that prehistoric kind of period.
Yeah,
they
where
look pretty badass. They look really cool.
Yeah, he did look. And man, he squished that hunter. That was brutal.
Imagine being. Can you imagine? Like, what's worse, a dinosaur or
a transform? No, a dinosaur is probably only going to be interested in you if he's hungry. But
yeah,
that was brutal.
So that was cool. So I did like that part of the history. I did like, and also,
you were right. That original the nest attack was in Shanghai, China. So
right, yeah. And I also did enjoy the idea of there was a shard of the cube for the most part. They got a remnant of the cube was left in Sam's sweater.
Yeah, and it caused him to act like Jesse Eisenberg in Batman versus Superman.
You know what? I couldn't play it. I'm like, why is this annoying me more than it did before? And that's the reason. Like, when I was watching, I'm like, I don't remember being as annoyed by this in the theater as I am right now. Why is this annoying me more? And now that you made that comparison, I see it. It tracks.
That's the first thing that I thought when I saw Jesse Eisenberg, as Lex Luthor, the way he was doing this, I was like, he reminds me of Sam Witwicky back from Revenge.
So Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor is now officially a cross between Jim Carrey's Riddler and Sam Witwicky.
Yeah. By the way, I did like that he interrupted his professor's lecture because that professor was a slime ball. You could tell.
Oh yeah. Talk about someone that needs to be called out for the Me Too crap.
Yeah.
It's that guy.
Yeah. And you could tell there were all these, students who were just, fawning over him. And I'm like, that guy's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Why? Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't even get it. Like, what's wrong with these girls? Like, I could show up in that class. They think I'm Chris Hemsworth.
That one girl picked up she picked up an apple off the floor and was going to eat it because he had taken a bite out of it.
Yeah, so I was going to put her on the list, but then when I saw that, I'm like, no, you definitely ain't on the list, girl. A, you're picking up stuff off the floor, and you're taking a bite that he bit. I said, no, you're off the list. If you were on the list, you'd be off the list, but you're not even on the list, right? So, because of that. So, but yeah, and again, that shard again. It circles back to the first film of how Archibald Witwicky, way back when, was sort of saw the symbols and everybody thought he was insane. And again, so it's sort of circling back to that, but with Sam. And I like that. So that part of it was cool. Anything that related to the history and the of the Transformers and the lore, in that sense, I liked. So that was good.
I can't hear that song. That song "Signs," and I can't remember the band who sings it, but signs everywhere, signs.
Yeah,
every time I think about Sam Witwicky, whenever I hear that song, because he was singing the language everywhere. So
yeah, no, you're right. Now that you mention it, yeah. And anytime you mention a musical cue, it deserves a clap because you're not a musical person in terms of,
right.
But the other thing I thought even made sense was his roommate being this, these conspiracy theorists trying to find out about the Transformers.
Yeah, Leo Spitz.
Yeah. I'm not gonna. I had a joke, but I'm not gonna go there.
Well, he runs a conspiracy website. Yeah.
Does he have a relative, and is her name anyway?
I know where you're going.
I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna finish that sentence, but you know where I'm going.
Yes, I do. Yes.
But But no, the idea of that they're online, and they're conspiracy theorists. They're trying to learn more and track the Transformers. That makes sense because after that first movie and what we saw in Shanghai, it makes sense that people would start asking questions.
Yeah.
And investigate. Like you can't sweep Autobots and Decepticons tearing up city streets under the rug. Like there's only so much. You know what I mean?
And you look at lots of property damage, and you got to think, people's lives ruined. And so, sure, it makes sense that there's some pushback to say, hey, maybe if the Autobots leave too, this whole thing will be over.
Yeah.
Maybe the only reason they're here is because of you.
So twofold, it makes sense that the general population would have these conspiracy theories and want to know more and investigate. And it makes sense that the government would say, even though they came off as, the advisor to the president or whatever he was, came off like a bureaucratic a-hole. The position makes sense of, since you've been here, we've been under attack. If we ask you to leave for the betterment of humanity, will you go? And Optimus is like, we wouldn't agree with the choice, but if that's the choice you make, we'll leave.
I did like how Sergeant Epps was like, and I'll clean this up. Sergeant Epps was like, yeah, that guy's a jerk.
yeah. And even Optimus is calming him down. Like, I'll handle it.
Right.
When the being that is, I don't know how many feet tall is Optimus.
I don't know, a couple hundred. He was huge.
Yeah. When he's the calming influence in the room, some serious stuff is going down.
Yeah.
When that guy is the voice of reason.
Yeah, I really like. Just an aside, I liked. It'd
be like Andre the Giant calming down Rey Mysterio.
Right. But I liked in the forest when Optimus was going after, again, Megatron and several Decepticons. He was like, he obviously was hacked off, and he was like, you could hear him under his breath, ruckus, fracas, pile of scrap. You rarely hear Optimus that angry, but I thought that was a nice touch.
And before we get to that moment, let's talk about, again, so Sam is at college.
Yes.
He's trying to do this whole long distance thing with Michaela.
Right.
I'm just going to say this and then I'll move on. But listen, I don't care what I'm doing, but if I've made a date with Megan Fox, and I'm in a long distance relationship, and we have a set time to communicate via webcam, I don't give a crap what I'm doing. The Leafs could be on in the Stanley Cup final, and I ain't missing that webcam chat. Screw the Leafs, because I know they're going to disappoint me anyway. So I'm just saying. The fact that he missed it for some whole hum college party, it's like, yeah, who cares? I wouldn't even come.
I just want to say, I did not like the character of Alice at all. And
right, but
nothing against the actress. I just thought that character was unnecessary. By the way, she survives in the IDW comics. She's known as the Pretender, and she survives like getting run over by the car and everything.
Totally unnecessary.
Yeah.
But I gotta say it, Donnie. The actress Isabella Lucas, which I think is her name.
Well, that's to your taste. That's fair.
Now, however, when she's trying to seduce Sam, she's trying to kill him, but the initial thing is seduction. I was on board until the tail came on. I mean, that would be the deal breaker.
Yeah.
To me,
the tongue was also disturbing.
Yeah, but the tail would be a little more. That would disturb me. Like because it's like the Joker said, if you gotta go with a smile. So I prescribe to that theory, but to a point. If there's a tail, that's where I'd rather not. So, but no, and then I will also say is Leo there. A couple of things about Leo. First of all, when he finds out that Alice has interest in Sam, he's kind of like, "Are you kidding me?" Which would be my reaction as well, because it's like, how does this guy go from, Megan Fox to Isabella Luca, that's my reaction as well. And then when he actually sees that Michaela is Sam's girlfriend, he's like he's so shocked. He's like, "This is unbelievable," and it's the most realistic reaction
Yeah.
to Shia LaBeouf having a girlfriend that looks like that I've ever seen. I'm like, this is on point. This is 100% a believable reaction. Because the other funny thing about Leo is, for all his bravado and all his talk about we're gonna find out the truth, blah 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 blah. When he's actually confronted with Autobots and Decepticon, he's scared shitless, but it's a realistic reaction.
Exactly. Yeah. And he does step up at the end.
Yeah. But so that was the impetus to the shard, the piece of the shard making Sam go crazy, was the impetus to get him and Michaela in the same place and get her involved in the action. And then there's also an interesting that the shard is also the MacGuffin that gets or remnants of Sector 7 back, and we get John Turturro.
Mm-hmm. Right. Who I thought did a good job in this movie.
Yeah. Look, he's the comedic relief, but again,
see, that's the thing. That's why you don't need too much humor from the train. When you have somebody like that who just really commands, the screen when he's on it, don't overdo the humor in other places.
But at the end of the day, he's comedic relief, but he does also step up.
Oh yes, yeah.
And so there is a balance there with his character. There's a balance, because when you first encounter a character like that, both in the 07 film and this film, nobody would judge you for saying, why would the government hire somebody like this? Like, look at this idiot, right? But then when you see him step up and do the right thing, you'd be like, okay, it makes sense. On some level, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they put him in a scenario where he's running a butcher shop. Like going from, look how far he's fallen down the totem pole of importance. He goes from, basically a clandestine government agency to running a butcher shop.
Mm-hmm.
And then we find out that he lives with his mother or his parents or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he, in his own way, is also still investigating the Autobots and Decepticons. He's taking a lot of stuff from.
I love the scene in that gigantic room with
that bunker.
Exactly, with all of those notes and folders and books. That was awesome.
Yeah. When I saw that, I kept thinking about the guy. The show Ancient Aliens.
Yeah.
And the guy with the big hair.
Yeah, I think you were supposed to know. Yeah, aliens. They've always been here. I think you were supposed to.
That guy should have been in the movie.
Yeah.
He should have had a cameo because I think it wouldn't. But so I like that he was still involved in sort of that realm, and through his notes and paperwork and all that is how you discover how long the Transformers have been there. Like, you see the wheel, which was the precursor to the first automobile, was a Cybertronian, which I think is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Like, tying it back to historical vehicles, like historical vehicle firsts, like the first car, the first plane.
Yeah.
All those were Cybertronians. I think that's cool.
Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that, like I said, that he talked about, they've been here for a long time, and that backs up what we heard earlier in the movie, that they and he even used the robots in disguise. He used that phrase.
Yeah, which
I thought was really cool.
Right,
so,
which is cool.
Yeah, and this now at the same time, we get to see that part of the reason that they're able to advance is because Wheelie, who is that little robot who is made is made in Michaela's whatever at her job there. I don't know what that was. Definitely not the Wheelie from the G1 comics or the G1 series, but when he was humping her leg, if there's a low point in Transformers history, it's that.
Now listen, I sympathize with the robot.
But how would he know that? He's like, oh, you're hot, but you're not so bright. And I was like, why would he think she's hot? She's human. Plus, he was just born.
I can think that.
Exactly, because you're a red-blooded human male. Why would he think that?
I can think that, and I can also feel what he's feeling. But he shouldn't. You're right. He is a robot. So why is he acting like a dog? Like essentially,
somebody should have seen that and cut that scene and said, "No, we don't need that."
Yeah. I mean, but So I think that's while I understood while I sympathize with his reactions and his desire to mate with Michaela in the way of putting it nicely.
Yeah.
I totally get it. I see where you're coming from, but I'm sorry. No, it's just not your thing, sir.
Yeah.
Or whatever you want to be called. But I think along this time is when Optimus has that scenario in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it is, right?
Yes.
Where he's being double teamed, or is there two?
He's fighting Megatron at first, and then several other Decepticons show up.
Yeah.
And by the way, I love that scene. Optimus taking them all on. He even says that, "I'll take you all on."
Yeah, it was badass.
That scene was awesome, and I loved it. I don't think, though, that they needed to do the death of Optimus Prime in the second movie.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
Should have been saved for later.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It was still emotional seeing him go down in this movie specifically for humanity's benefit, right? But it was a mistake to do it in film number 2.
Right.
Much like parallel to a movie that we're talking about comparing. Much like Batman vs. Superman. You shouldn't kill Superman in movie 2.
Yeah, much like DC can't stop killing Superman in various forms of media, the same thing goes for Optimus Prime. Yeah. I think I actually heard that through various forms of media, and this might not be right, but I did hear this in a video, that he's died 24 times.
Optimus or Superman?
Optimus.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Oh, he's got the resurrection thing handle. So while the death had an impact, I don't think it should have happened in movie 2.
Right, exactly. I would have no problem with that being adapted, but that should have been a fourth movie thing.
That should have been movie 4, and then movie 5 they resurrect him. But,
sure, something like that. Yeah.
But so with Optimus sort of off the table, we learned that the Fallen are created through the old what's his name?
The Primes were the one he was a Prime before, and he betrayed them. Yeah.
Yeah. But didn't he have a name?
Oh, the
old guy. Was it?
Oh, Jetfire.
Jetfire,
yeah. Jetfire, yeah, the old Transformer, yeah.
Yeah. He's talking about he gives you the exposition, and he basically gives us the MacGuffin of the movie, which is the
Matrix. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I thought that was the word, but then I started thinking about the Wachowski movie, and it was confusing.
Well, the reason we learned that here is because Jetfire, he's a former Decepticon seeker who turned to the Autobots.
Yeah. Which is a cool.
Yeah. I like the idea that, and that's something that was good about this character, is that he saw the error of the Decepticons' ways. By the way, Megatron became an ally of the Autobots in the IDW comics.
Yes.
So we have seen that, more in some of the...
We have seen the flip-flop, yeah.
Yeah, the Transformer media.
The baby-face turn.
Baby-face turn, yeah, there you go.
But I don't think...
Do you think back on Cybertron that Megatron kicked Optimus Prime through a barbershop window?
I hope that's the case in the new animated movie. Can you imagine? I'd pay good money to see that. That would
Yeah.
be so like Bumblebee could be like the Bruce the Barber Beefcake interviewer,
Yeah.
and then we can have Optimus. Although being Marty Jannetty is really a downplay. I mean, you imagine comparing Optimus Prime to Marty Jannetty.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, that's a downgrade. I mean, we just put him in the same sentence as Superman. Now we're putting him in the same sentence as Marty Jannetty. That's a downgrade and a half.
That's a different podcast.
Yeah,
That's the
but
Wayback Wrestling Mania podcast available right here on YouTube. There you go.
Well, that was a good segue, so I'll take a drink. So we learn all the backstory and how sort of the matrix of leadership. It's hidden in Egypt, the pyramids.
Yeah.
And the fallen of kind of the way they show it in the flashback is, I don't know if this is the right word, but they morph with the pyramids.
No, they sacrificed themselves to form a tomb around it. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I mean. But
it was actually like the side of a mountain at the time.
So they form. Okay, that's how. But it was really cool. I'm like, that's pretty. That's pretty inventive. That's pretty cool. Like it looks.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they actually went to Egypt to shoot this, is pretty impressive. Like, that's a good thing. I got to say about the Transformers movies, and this one, is no different. Like they actually go to these locations. So while they do use CGI and green screen a lot of the locations you're seeing are actual locations that they're on, and that's pretty cool.
And the pyramids look good. The various places out in the desert, all of that looked good.
And tying it in with Egypt, it makes sense. And it calls to mind that show, Ancient Aliens, which I confess I watch it. It's fascinating.
Now, as much as I like Seymour Simmons and his redemption arc, especially at the end here, I could have done without the line, "I'm right underneath the enemy's scrotum," and I'm like,
and I knew you'd have a problem with that because we have ultimately one of the villains that we're dealing with is what's his name now? Devastator.
Yes, Devastator shows up in this. Yes,
and I love the way they showcase him and his brand of, pun intended, devastation.
Right. I didn't like his look, but the character was on point in like the havoc that he wrought. So
the look is a little bit leaves a lot to be desired. It's clunky. It's very chaotic. But so there's that. And the whole like third act is, basically to stop Devastator. The idea of resurrecting Optimus Prime is put on the table, and they have to unite him with the Matrix of Leadership.
And it's said throughout the film several times, the only person who can beat the Fallen is a Prime. And at that point, there are no Primes left.
And he's the only one.
Right.
And so there's this whole elaborate thing where they get the humans from Nest to fly Optimus's body to Egypt. Mm-hmm. They drop him in the middle of essentially the war zone where everything is going down. And by the way, when they dropped him there, I'm thinking, can you imagine that was a statue or a figure? You just drop it like that? That was a shame. Mm-hmm. It just made me cringe a little bit thinking about it.
I have nightmares about figures falling down and breaking.
Me too. So that's what I thought of. But so and then that when all this devastation and craziness is going on, that's the scene you talked about earlier with Sam and his parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so while the humans from Nest, a bunch of the Autobots are fighting Decepticons and trying to push back Devastator. Yeah. Sam is running with the Matrix of Leadership, Sam and Michaela, towards Optimus, and gotta give Michael Bay credit. I mean, there's slow-mo running, there's explosions.
Oh, if anybody knows how to do explosions, it's Michael Bay.
Yeah, I mean, it looks fantastic. Like visually, it's
And once again, I want to call out Kevin Dunn. He did such a great job as Sam's father. Really emotional there at the end.
Yeah, he was really good. But he's a good character actor. He's one of those guys you put him in a movie and you know he's going to be dependable and solid. And so, of course, Sam gets hit in the melee with all the explosions and all the firing going on, and it seems like Sam kind of has a death moment where he, I guess, goes temporarily to the great beyond, and is confronted by the Primes.
And I really liked this story point.
Yeah, I was going, and they basically, because at that point, in the story, the matrix of leadership had dissolved, so the Primes are basically telling him that they are they're very impressed and sort of in awe of what a human would do for Optimus. Again, in defense of the Autobots.
Right. And I like the symmetry that, Sam being willing to sacrifice himself to resurrect Optimus after Optimus,
like Optimus
sacrificed himself to save Sam. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Primes, in seeing that, they grant him, they bring him, they give him the ability, they resuscitate him in some mystical mumbo jumbo.
It's like a mystical EKG.
Yeah,
just
exactly. Mystical EKG mumbo jumbo. So Sam is resurrected. He comes to, and of course, kisses Michaela because when you come to from a near-death experience, what do you do?
Not EKG, an AED. Automatic. Electronic defibrillator. Just kaboosh. That was said about it because they actually were using it. The military's using that on Sam, and that was said to see Megan Fox's reaction. She did a really good job there.
And that's why she gets, she gets criticized a lot. But she did a great job there. Showing the emotion. Like she actually made me believe that she was in love with Shia LaBeouf, which is as hard as that is to believe. Here we are. But so he's awakened. Of course, what's the first thing you do when you wake up from a near-death experience? You kiss Megan Fox. I do that too. Let's call it what it is. Let's say what it is. Anyway, the Matrix of Power magically reappears, reforms from the dust. It turns into a physical entity. And then Sam goes and stabs Optimus in the chest with the Matrix of Power.
Kind of like that time that Macho Man gave Hulk Hogan the reviving elbow,
Yeah.
Woke him up.
The mega powers, and so Optimus is revived, and then he's given the wings of Jetfire.
Yeah, Jetfire sacrifices himself and lets Optimus use his parts.
Jetfire is basically like Danny Glover in the Lethal Weapon movies, where he's like, "I'm too old for this shit. Here's my stuff. You do it." Right? And so that's what he does. And Optimus is able to save the day. And vanquish Devastator.
Yeah, he beats the crap out of Megatron and the Fallen.
and that's the thing, for all his quality, leadership, compassion, selflessness, they're all there with Optimus. But when he goes in badass warrior mode, I mean, virtually nothing compares. Like he's on another level.
Right. And and again, if I could draw a parallel, I always like when Superman reaches his limit with the villains, and he's like, enough.
When
he says enough, something's about to go down.
So yeah, so I mean the crossover potential. Just come on, JLA and Transformers comic, make it happen. Come on, somebody do it, and have the covers drawn by Alex Ross.
Oh, that would be beautiful.
But so yeah, so in the end we saved the day, and again we end off with.
And what the Decepticons were trying to do was blow up our sun.
Yeah,
obviously, which would have ended all life on the planet, and except for cockroaches and
yeah. I mean, if you're a supervillain, that's a good plan. You can take out the sun.
And Optimus was able to stop that. And I will say too, I also I didn't mind the Fallen as much as a villain, but I didn't like the idea of Megatron being like his servant almost, and him Megatron calling him master and stuff. I'm like that. This just doesn't seem like something Megatron would do.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's a little too. He's a little too subservient.
Yes.
For my liking. It's like I get the same feeling when you have Shredder and Krang. Like when Shredder's always the minion of Krang. It's like This guy is the Turtles Joker. He can't be a minion to freaking Krang.
Right. You would think that at any second he's looking to double cross the
think about for an example. Remember when we did the Halloween story with the DC with Necron?
Yeah.
And the Joker was with them, but he was always like in the back of his mind, he's scheming to double cross everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you want with Megatron, right? That agency, that power, always. So. But anyways,
I think you mean Neron, the Underworld Unleashed, the one that we did. Yeah.
What did I say?
You said Necron, which that's right.
You knew who I meant. But
if you want to hear us talk about that story, you can do so right here on Multiverse Musings, the Vidcast. Make sure to subscribe.
DC Comics Chronicles, to be precise.
Exactly. Yep. Underworld Unleashed.
Yes, that was the one. That's correct. Yeah. We were given a dare to do that, and we
did it. Yeah.
I'm proud of ourselves. Proud of myself.
Barry Horowitz.
Yeah, that's right. So this day is saved, and then we end with, of course, Optimus sending another message to the Autobots, telling them that we're here, and it's.
I really did like that final. Yeah, that final shot of Optimus and Sam. Both kind of staring off into space. That really looked good. Yeah.
I love when and each one of these movies is ended with an Optimus speech, and I love it because, again, I can listen to Peter Call and read the phone book and probably be entertained. So
I also really like there's a lot of truth in that line where Optimus told Sam, "Fate rarely calls upon us at a moment of our choosing."
Yeah. That's
pretty profound.
Yeah, I agree. So that's how it ends. Again, overall, I think.
And Sam and Michaela are together at the end.
Yeah, which, I mean, it's a shame that she didn't come back to finish the Witwicky trilogy, if you will call it. Let's call it. But off screen in the next one, things happen. So, but at the end of this movie, they're together, and as I was watching, I got into my Dolph Ziggler routine, saying it should have been me. But I digress. But overall, again, there's a lot more of this film that I didn't like compared to the first film, but there's still enough here to enjoy. And overall, despite its flaws, I had fun with it.
Likewise.
And
I mean, really, you give me a big bunch of battles and Sam Witwicky maturing and Optimus Prime coming back to save the day, I'm going to like it.
Yeah, like this stuff doesn't have to be Shakespeare. Yeah. I mean, and when some fans talk about this and complain about stuff, it's like, but what, look what franchise are we dealing with here? Like, you want a good story, You want things that make sense, but I don't need realism. I don't need, you know, Shakespearean level educated dialogue. No, I need it to be a little less ridiculous than I'm beneath the enemy scrotum and
Right.
mini robots humping human girls' legs.
Right.
You take that nonsense out. But I don't need, dialogue that is extremely sophisticated or a dissertation on the meaning of life or anything. It's a Transformers movie, folks.
Yeah. And so, we do get some pearls of wisdom from Optimus.
Of course you do, but
got some genuinely scary moments from the Decepticons, like when Megatron had Sam pinned down and looked like he was ready to dissect him. Talked about pulling his brain out.
Yeah, there's a lot of scenes where Sam is actually in more danger here.
Mm-hmm.
You felt, again, they upped the ante in terms of the danger and the sort of, you weren't sure. The mark of a good franchise movie like this is, even though you know as a fan that there's probably going to be another one, so your main characters aren't going to die, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or at least permanently. But if during the movie I'm getting the sense that, hey, maybe some characters won't make it out of this, or I'm present in the danger that they're feeling, then you've succeeded, and I was here in this case. So there's a lot of good, there's some bad, but overall it was a fun, enjoyable experience that left me wanting more Transformers, and
we got plenty more.
Yeah. So with that, Donnie, what would you grade this film?
We're doing letter grade.
Yes.
C+.
Yeah, that's where I am too. It's a C+.
Yeah.
It's good. There's some bad.
Right.
But
has some flaws. Ultimately, again, if you're a Transformers fan, that's what I never understand about so many fandoms out there. People will say, "Oh, I'm a huge fan of this thing," and then they'll take a poop on everything for 30 years, and I'm like, no, it's still Transformers. I still had fun, even though it had some obvious flaws.
Yeah,
so.
Right, exactly. And no movie is perfect.
Right.
I don't think in the history of movies I would consider a perfect movie. So there's that. But that takes us through Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be back with more retro reviews of the previous films, and also eventually we will cover Transformers: Rise of the Beast, as I alluded to at the top of the show. But until then, you can talk Autobots and Decepticons with us on social media. So, Donnie, where do they track you down?
You can find me on Twitter and TikTok, as well as my own YouTube channel, where I do reviews of lots of comics and collectibles. That is the Emerald Enthusiast. That's me. Let's talk comics. Let's talk collectibles. Let's talk Green Lantern. Let's talk Transformers.
And if you want to find me, it's at Adam_LeafsFan on Twitter. And the podcast network has a Twitter feed all its own, at MMNPDC. We have a Facebook group, which I will link to in the description below. Click that, I will add you, and we can continue the conversation there if you so choose. But remember that Optimus Prime and the Transformers are forever. From the first time Optimus dies and is resurrected to the last, which is apparently 24 or 25 times.
Right.
Until then, so long, everybody.
So long, everyone.